Welcome to the Your City podcast, where we get to know our neighbors so that we can be good neighbors. I'm your host, Aaron Williams, and before we get started, we're going to say a thank you to today's sponsor. Our sponsor for today's episode is Sweet Ting's Cakes and Cookies. Sweet Tings is a certified home baker who specializes in decorated cakes and cookies for all occasions. She's super passionate about creating beautiful memories for her clients through her homemade sweets. Whether it's for a birthday party, wedding, baby shower, anniversary, or any holiday celebration, you can reach out to Sweet Tings for some delicious and professional-looking desserts that will be sure to please the crowd. You can find her on Facebook at Sweet Tings Cakes and Cookies, or give her a call at 205-223-4861. Today, I'm joined by Meredith Drennen, who is the director of the Chamber of Commerce in Homewood. We're going to talk to her about the chamber, how it is integrated into the community, and what inspired her to pursue this type of work. Meredith, thank you for coming on to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So the chamber is probably a huge community creating thing. In what ways is the Chamber of Commerce connected to the community of Homewood?
Well, there are obviously a number of reasons. The Chamber of Commerce, we're a membership organization of businesses, so that's who comprises our membership.
Mm-hmm.
So when you take a number of businesses from any community, you start to really kind of see that through thread of the fabric of what that community is. So naturally, in Homewood, what's interesting is we have a really great diverse mix of businesses. We've got a university right here. Mm-hmm. We've got some really great manufacturing and distributors over in West Homewood. We have an incredibly strong Main Street right here in downtown, but also some really strong, I call them organic districts, really, mm-hmm. of Edgewood and West Homewood that have lots of homegrown businesses. So,
is that why you call it organic?
Yeah, it's organic. It's homegrown. These are districts that were not planned out. So when you look at a
mm-hmm.
mall, or you look at something, we have some really great ones here in Birmingham, like the Summit. That's all owned by one entity that subleases all of these spots out.
And somebody somewhere said, we're going to do this.
And they've got, one decision maker, and they can get things done really easily because it's their property. With our districts, there's nobody selling things en masse. There's not. It's individual business owners. It's individual property owners. Yeah. And they're doing what's best for sometimes their families. They're doing what's best for the community. But there's not an overarching necessarily somebody that's going out and selling those per se. Mm-hmm. So that's when sometimes a chamber really is important to come in and kind of help being that voice of business in a community. We do a lot of things where we work one-on-one with businesses to help be that voice. Sometimes, mm-hmm. the city of Homewood might put together a committee and they need some business voices. When you bring in the Chamber of Commerce, you can have a distillation of all those different interests in one. We've got the big businesses, we've got the mom and pops, we've got the Main Street, we've got the chains, we've got so many different businesses that make up Homewood. And that's one of the reasons a chamber is so important. But especially in a small community, the chamber really takes on a lot of different roles and gets to do things that are a lot more fun, too.
Okay.
So, for example, we've got coming up this weekend Hop and Shop, which is a shopping event downtown in preparation for Easter, where we get to have a little bit of fun. We bring the Easter Bunny downtown. All the businesses put out Easter eggs. Sometimes there's candy and treats in the eggs, and the kids get to hunt for them in the stores, or sometimes there's coupons. So it's a fun shopping event we get to do. We do the sidewalk sale in the summer. I guess it was about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and a lot of the businesses got together and said, hey, we've got some summer product we need to clear out before back to school. Is there kind of a fun way to get to do this? So we do a big sidewalk sale the last Saturday in July, excuse me, and just the streets covered up with racks and with different discounts.
So it's all outside.
It's all outside. Well, each of the businesses kind of showcases some of their things outside.
Okay.
And those discounts can be up to 75% off some of these boutique clothing. It's some really good deals we get to have.
Yeah.
And then, of course, over Christmas, we do a big holiday open house, which is probably one of our most fun events of the year, I think. And it's very strategic, too, getting ready for the holiday season. So many of these small businesses, there's a reason they call it Black Friday, is that just so much of these businesses' income comes from, the last, month of the year. We kick off the holiday season. Instead of having each business do their own open house and their own Christmas party, we do it all on one night on 18th Street. So all the businesses stay open late, and they serve food and they serve beverages, and we bring Santa Claus, and he kind of walks up and down. But we do it the first Thursday in November. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason for that. We do it because we want to kick off the holiday season early, and we know that it come the day after Thanksgiving, the big box stores can slash prices so much. When we start people thinking about shopping early, we get their Christmas shopping started early. When those gears start turning, especially early on, sometimes we can jump in and commandeer someone's Christmas list pretty early.
Yeah, stuff that they would have bought at a big box store.
Yeah, they've been thinking about a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
And really just when people start thinking about holiday shopping, it gets them into that holiday shopping move. And it really, especially this year, was really important because of the shipping delays and the supply chain, interruptions. People really started, thinking about Christmas shopping in October. So it was, we've been doing this for years, trying to get people thinking about shopping early, but from a strategy standpoint. But this year especially, it was really important.
Yeah. What about the respect for Thanksgiving? No, I'm just kidding.
None.
I'm just
I
kidding.
have none.
Oh my gosh.
Personally, I do not set up my Christmas tree until the day after Thanksgiving. Professionally, start Christmas at Labor Day.
I was just making a joke. I love Thanksgiving and stuff like that. Now, I want to go back to, you said something about being a voice for the business. What does that exactly mean? Are you talking about like you guys are like a liaison between businesses and the city? Like kind of like, you have the wards, right? Where you have a representative that's elected to represent, but you're kind of like a little bit, hey, I'm a representative for business owners. Is that what that means?
Kind of. Now, so I'll give a couple of examples. So, for example, a few years back, the city recognized that they, because we've got so many different, landowners, we want to do some Christmas decorations, but we needed a group of volunteers to get together to really look at those Christmas decorations, get bids, go through the process, pick out the colors. And the mayor put together a beautification board. Mm-hmm. And when they were putting together the representatives on that, so many of the things that they wanted to beautify were in the business districts. Well, business owners may work here, but they don't live here. Or you might have somebody, the business is, the building is owned by a property owner, but that person does not necessarily live in Homewood. So it was really important to get that business voice on this committee. And the best way to do that was, the mayor appointed me as a kind of like a liaison to that committee. And, so I sit in on meetings, we talk, I volunteer just like everybody else. Mm-hmm. I'm personally, a resident of Ward 4 as well, but having that voice from the business community on the beautification board is very important because we're looking at Christmas decorations. What kind of things do they need? What kind of things do they want? And really sticking up for the businesses and what's going to be best for them. It's, Christmas decorations, of course, are very non-controversial. Who doesn't love Christmas decorations? It does take a lot of time and a lot of work to figure out exactly what it is we need, what makes the most sense, what's the most cost effective, but also what's going to beautify the city as well. And that board has really grown into a number of other directions. We look at the gateways to the community. We do awards for businesses that have either renovated or cleaned up properties that have beautified. And so it's really helpful to have that business voice on that as well. Another really good example was when I first started, actually 8 years ago, the city recognized that there were lots of parking issues in downtown, and they needed a committee to get together and kind of come up with the laundry list of things that needed to be done about parking. You can identify individual business owners maybe that can serve on that committee, but it was really helpful to put me on that committee because I can represent every business in Homewood on parking issues.
Yeah.
when there's an issue, a lot of times people call the chamber director about what's going on from the businesses.
That's what I was thinking about. I was like, historically, I just, my involvement in chambers has been, that if you're a business, you go there to network. But this idea of like, well, the chamber is a connection to the city officials. And so like, if you're a business, that is an easy way in to getting into like being heard by the city.
It's a very grassroots kind of form of advocacy. It's great in the sense that, I have a little bit of flexibility where I can go meet with lots of different people and advocate for those businesses. It's tough, but sometimes it is incredibly important for our businesses to have that extra advocate. And so in a way, I provide the city with that input from the business community. And that's my constituency in a sense. But, it's not, you kind of almost brought it to the point where, I don't sit on city council. I don't have a vote. But sometimes any city councilor can call me and ask for, hey, have you gotten calls about this issue? What's the temperature on XYZ?
Well, if the city councilors are doing, their job is to represent their constituents and things like that, right? So like having their ear and giving them things to think about, like that's almost like being on there. At the end of the day, they make the decisions, but you have that influence and you have that ability to sort of like turn their attention to something that they may not have seen.
I can provide them information.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing is that data point of, how many businesses have called Meredith about this issue. And that's why, especially parking was such one of those things that really bubbled up because so many people had called us and wanted us to look at those parking issues. And what was great about that committee specifically was we were able to come up with a list of 15 recommendations, and those were things that the city council was able to systematically go through and check off boxes. We looked at this area. We looked at this area. We put 10 parking spaces here. We put 15 parking spaces there. And, each one of those projects in its own was not life-changing. But when you get through those 15 things, you might have added 300 parking spaces. And that is a big deal.
When you guys were doing this type of measuring and figuring things out, was making things more walk accessible, like adding sidewalks and things like that, does that alleviate parking in any way?
Yes, and it's a more of an creating the environment for where you don't need parking as much. So if a resident can walk to downtown or walk to Edgewood easily, they will, especially when parking is difficult. But So that is all very important. But also, I think our city is very keenly aware, separate from the business community, our schools need really great sidewalks to get kids to school. So if you'll notice throughout the community, wherever there is a school, the sidewalks around it will be really in tip-top shape. Or if we've got a list of, here's 800 sidewalks we can build, we'll push to the top of the list the ones that are close to schools because those are, going to be the ones that walkers use to schools. Interestingly, you've got especially, Edgewood and Call-Kent are very close to some business districts that have really been well served by those sidewalks that are close by.
Yeah.
So it's an ecosystem.
So with this, you're listening to all these businesses and you're hearing all of this stuff. Is that what drives your focus on stuff? How do you feel out what the chamber should be focusing on? So
there's a couple different levels to that. First and foremost, a few years back, we actually put together a strategic plan, and that kind of guides my overarching 100,000-foot view. What should I be doing? And one of those things was to be a liaison for businesses with the city. Sometimes that means that, I get 100 phone calls about an issue. But if I'm hearing that, 90 of those have the same, feeling about something, then that can kind of guide our board and me into how, we approach a situation. But those 4 goal areas that we really kind of dug down on, I know that if if there's a project or something that does not fit into those 4 goal areas, it doesn't receive as, necessarily as much of my attention.
So you kind of have these pillars almost that are kind of like supporting the overall North Star goal. In my industry, that's something that we kind of use as like, what's our North Star? What is our actual goal that we're trying to get to? Everything needs to align to that. So you use these types of pillars to align to what the overall goal is?
Correct. So, and we really put those together. We actually hired in a planner who lives in Homewood but is not an employee of the chamber, which was really, really, really helpful. So, we really, our strategic plan guides us. It has started to reach the end of its shelf life, and we're going through the process of reauthorizing it. I have a feeling those goal areas will be the same, but the strategies we use to accomplish those goals might change a little bit.
When you say it's at the end of its shelf life, do you mean like, yes, we've achieved the things that it set out to do? Like, hey, that was a success, we're going to create a new one, or hey, that wasn't working? Like, what does that mean when this is at the end of its shelf life, we need to reinvigorate?
When we put it together, we gave it a 3-year term, basically. Okay. And in our minds, we knew that the overarching, core values of the chamber were not going to change, but we did come up with a number of strategies under each of those goal areas on how we would address those goals. And those will change because projects either get accomplished, we've checked that box, we've done this, we've done that. There's some strategies that are ongoing. And those are the things that we keep on doing, even, as we're getting through this, the end of the strategic plan. For example, being a liaison between businesses in the city is one of our goals. We'll never accomplish that. It's ongoing.
Yeah.
We got to keep on doing that. Networking and events is another one of those pillars. We do networking, events all the time. We have luncheons monthly that the chamber does for our members. We do one, we've got one the next month. Those things will always keep coming. So it's very important. Another one of the pillars was marketing Homewood. So we market, the chamber, or, try to generate interest in people joining. But a big concept of the chamber is marketing Homewood to non-residents,
non-Homewoodians.
Yeah.
What do y'all call them?
A big part of making sure the business community is strong is making sure we have shoppers in Homewood and people shop local, but also people from outside of Homewood are shopping, so that people outside Homewood need to know about Homewood and who we are and what we are. So it's very important for us to, really kind of analyze that. Now, marketing Homewood. We've got lots of things we do all the time, and it keeps on going. But there's also projects that pop up, like the World Games. Mm-hmm. And that's what I mean by, like, strategies change. So one of our strategies, all of a sudden is now going to be about the World Games and marketing Homewood towards those visitors and the athletes that are coming in.
Well, how are you approaching the World Games? How are you making sure that is going to be a successful event for Homewood? And I guess, let's say, okay, it's been a year after the World Games. How would you measure that success?
We've got a couple things we're doing, and we're really, really glad, very, very thankful. The city actually came to us well in advance of the World Games, put together some money in their budget, and they said, we want to make sure that we're taking advantage of everything we need to do. Can you kind of spearhead this process for us? Mm-hmm. So we met with a couple of local PR experts, with some of our city councilors, and said, what do we need to do? Mm-hmm. And the first thing we did was we kind of divided this into almost 2 time frames. We've got leading up to the World Games. So really, and you can say that's any time, but we focused on, January really through probably May of this 2022, and said this is the time when folks will be getting their hotel rooms, maybe planning out their stay a little bit, but really the hotel rooms. We want to make sure those hotel rooms are full. So we have partnered with a local firm that's placing Google ads for us. So anytime someone searches, World Games Birmingham Hotel, they get ads about coming and staying in Homewood, how great Homewood is. You want to come stay in Homewood because we're walkable, because we've got all these great stores with these great restaurants. So that's kind of if you think about our marketing in those two silos of pre-World Games and during World Games. So during the World Games, we have used that same company to take out some ads for geofencing.
What is that?
So geofencing takes individuals' cell phone pings, basically. They can almost make, if you think about it, like a fence around a specific area. An attendee to the games maybe goes to the BJCC. We've geofenced the BJCC, and then we know those folks are probably here for the World Games. We can send them ads while they're here about coming to shop in Homewood, coming to eat in Homewood. Hey, we're so glad you're here for the World Games. Come to Homewood to shop. Because those shopping and those dining experiences are going to be a little bit more spur of the moment decisions. So we have geofenced a lot of the locations for the actual events to send them ads to come to Homewood. So those are kind of those two silos for those digital ads. We've also, and I've brought you a copy of our guide to Homewood. This is a great tool we use. We actually put together every year. But this year we're dropping off some at locations. We always bring some to hotels in the area. This year we're dropping them off at the Crossplex and at the BJCC, and we're sending more to the CVB, sending more to some of our local hotels than we usually do. It contains, lots of information about staying in Homewood and the things that are going on. We've also put together a shopping map too, that where guests especially can really quickly kind of see our downtown, Edgewood, West Homewood, and where all those businesses are, what they are, and really kind of enjoy their stay.
It's interesting because you're kind of like, on the one hand, the chamber is about local community and integrating the businesses into the city and all that stuff that we were talking about. But in this instance, this event is unique in that it's international. It's going to be people from all over. So for this event, you guys kind of have to transform into a little tourism town, right? Of like, we need people outside of the city to become aware of what's in here, so that when they get here, they can navigate it.
But it's an easy pivot in the sense that, I'm always going to be my community's cheerleader.
Yeah.
Whether it's I'm cheerleading for the people that are here, or if I'm cheerleading to let people that are not residents know about it. So it's a really easy pivot.
So the communication strategy just sort of differs a bit, but it's still like kind of the same. We're communicating the same thing, just in a different type of way. How do we do that?
Yeah, and we were really lucky that we got a little bit of practice with the geofencing. We had actually never done that before Christmas this year. And we knew the World Games were coming up. We knew that we had already been allocated some funds to take out ads from the city of Homewood. And we thought, you know what, we are going to test the waters a little bit. We'd never done this before, but for shopping at Christmas, we started. And we geofenced some other areas, some other shopping districts in the metro region, and said, okay, if someone goes to the Summit to shop, we don't want them shopping at the Summit. We want them shopping in Homewood. And so we started geofencing the Summit to send them ads to come to Homewood to shop. And it really was, an efficient use of funds. It's much cheaper, I think, sometimes than some other advertisements we've ever done. And it is very trackable. Get the analytics. We know exactly how many people not only saw the ads, but also who walked in a Homewood store after that ad was sent to them. And that's really important. You mentioned, how do we gauge success later on by utilizing some of those digital ads? We get much more data post ad being placed than any other project that we do. And it was really interesting because when I approached our local ad placement service about this, they Stearns Media has done all this for us, and they really have done a really great job. They said, well, what are your goals? What are, we want to make sure that, we're placing these ads appropriately. And, I didn't necessarily, I don't get immediate sales tax revenue data, so I don't know, did Alabama Goods, sell, X amount of money one year and then 10% more this year. So I don't get that data. When they came back to us with the actual foot through the door transfer of this person got this ad and this person walked in the door, they'd never seen that progression before. So we know we're doing something right with this kind of placement of ads.
Yeah. How do you measure success outside of taking it away from the World Games back to just day-to-day chamber obligations? How do you measure success for just your daily practices and strategies?
One thing I think with this next strategic planning process, I'm really interested in coming up with, we've got goals, these overarching goals. I really want to come up with some core values that the chamber, wants to exhibit day to day. I'm a real big believer in.
Do you have an idea
in core values? I know what mine are.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean those are the organizations. But when I think anytime an individual can look at their organization's core values and say, mine align with this, everything else is a lot easier. I've made everyone in my office do the value cards exercise. Have you done that before?
No, what is that?
So it's almost like a deck of cards, 64 cards. They've got 64 different values on them. And, you start them off by saying, just make a pile of yes and no. What might be your core? What do you think are really important values and what are slightly less important to you? You put them into 2 decks, and then you take your yes deck and you narrow it down to, I think, 10. And you get that 10, then you narrow it down to 5.
How do you do that?
It's really hard.
Yeah.
So I did this as a part of, there's a local women's executive leadership program called Momentum. And I did this going through their leadership program in 2021. No, it was 2020, excuse me. So knowing those core values made me look back on some of my life experiences and say, oh, I got along with this person really well because that probably was one of their core values. Or I didn't get along with this person because they violated one of my core values. So mine are competency, growth, and integrity are really my 3 ones. Trust is up there too, and I put that up on my board, but really you want to, really 3 are good.
Yeah.
So now I've made everyone in my office do them too. And we've written them up. We have them next to our desks. So anytime I walk in and think about how am I going to assign a task to this person, one of my coworkers, her core value is teamwork. That tells me when I'm managing her that instead of giving her one big project to work on by herself, sometimes we take a big project and we each get a third of it. And that's, because that's one of her core values. Yeah. And that's going to make her happier working with me because we've really engaged that core value of hers.
Yeah, that's an interesting approach of like, how do we measure success and how do we sort of create success is like, well, let's define our principle. Let's align.
And that's different than a goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I would love to do a part of this next, strategic planning process is come up with those core values because we've got goals that I think are fantastic. But if we also can look back on our, really our core principles, our core values and say, we've done this every single day. For me, I look at, did I maintain my integrity? Did I, show competency in what I did? And did I in some way grow? If I've done those 3 things or not violated any of those 3 things, that's a successful day.
And it also is helping, like you said, with your other teammates and the people who are working with you. It helps everyone sort of like discover and align together.
Yep.
So that's a really interesting approach.
That's not an analytic, but it is very important.
Yeah. Well, I can see how that would generate success because you're generating successful collaboration, right? So I can see where that would get you down the road. in that direction?
So from a successful day to me is, in some ways, did I maintain those core values? Also, we've got a lot of analytics from our social media. Have we reached more people? Have we been engaging in good conversation? Those are really important things. One of the things that I list on my resume is, how I've grown either, membership renewals or membership engagement. And we can dial down those numbers really, really easily. We've got a really great software program we utilize called Chamber Master, and they can come up with every data analytic, report that you want to run. How have your, the attendance at your events grown? How have they? And in 2020, that is a difficult metric to look at. But so we're really lucky in that I think our board has given us the tools we need to really look at those analytics really well.
Do a lot of other chambers use Chamber Master?
Yes. So there's a couple big software programs that most chambers use. Chamber Master is by far the biggest, but here's what's really, really great about it. And this is not an ad for Chamber Master. I'm in no way paid by them or endorsed. So I have a website, and I want to put all my members on that website. Where do I put that information? What information talks to my website to update it? So Chamber Master has all these plugins on your website. So when you have your application, you type in, Meredith Drennen. It automatically goes into Chamber Master and then talks to the plugin on your website and updates it there too, but then also talks to your QuickBooks and updates it there. So when I have all these places, all my members are listed. I only have to change it once.
It's this interoperability situation. Yeah.
And when you have a staff of 3, that's so important because I would much rather...
Well, it gives you like a lot more. It's like, when I pull this lever, it pulls all those other ones.
Exactly. So, how is my time best spent? Is it meeting one-on-one with businesses to find out what their problems are, or is it changing Meredith Drennen's information in 18 different places that takes 3 hours?
Yeah. Listen, I completely...
It's a great, time.
That makes sense.
And then we are also, we've partnered with them to redo our website. So they have this platform where you can, do all these different things, but we haven't necessarily had the ability to use all the widgets and plugins on our website properly. And so they're putting together a website for us, which we can, which is going to be really great for our members. Starting the first week of May, we'll have a jobs board. We've had a private jobs board that's been visible to just other chamber members for years. This one plugs into our public website. So if, O. Henry's is looking for a barista, they can put it, on in their Chamber Master, and boom,
it becomes a public resource.
Becomes a public resource, and it's free for our members.
Very cool.
So we're really excited about that.
Yeah. What would you say are some of the toughest challenges? You've been here for several years now. You've worked in the chamber, I know, for you said 15 years?
I've been in the industry for 15 years.
Yeah. What have been some of the toughest challenges that you've faced in there, and kind of, how have you approached that?
So 15 years, I started working for the Birmingham Regional Chamber of Commerce out of graduate school. I'm a typical millennial, and I was getting to the end of my graduate school career and Googled a bunch of words that I thought would make a fulfilling job, and 3 popped up. One of them was at the Birmingham Regional Chamber of Commerce, and I applied, and 2 weeks later I was hired, and I started the week of exams.
This sounds not typical.
I mean, well, it's just technology nowadays.
Yeah.
This was before Indeed and before, all these jobs boards, et cetera. It was really just kind of kismet that this all kind of aligned. But I started work that was in 2007, and then what happened in 2008? The world collapsed. The economy collapsed. And working for a chamber during an economic recession like that was the best training I could have possibly gotten. So in around that same time, the Birmingham Chamber went through a merger process as well. So I was dealing with not only with a economic collapse, but a merger within my organization. Talk about stress. And, we all of a sudden were running events and trying to do things for the business community, but we didn't necessarily have a budget.
Yeah.
How do you get stuff for free? I really learned to ask for stuff.
Yeah.
I had to get over that. But also, I think it was a tool or a trait I had to learn in doing a lot with nothing. But also knowing because of the times, you have to do the most you possibly can because, when you own a small business, it's your livelihood. But when you run a chamber or you work with a chamber, you are a shepherd for all the businesses. And we really had to make sure we were doing the most with a really small amount of resources.
I'm sure it wasn't fun or, at the time you probably weren't thinking like, oh man, I'm learning so much. But looking back on it, those tough times in your life really, once you get through it, you can look back on those and you can say, wow, that really helped where I'm at today.
Not just me, but other people.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we spoke a little bit on the phone about, I really feel like that 2008, that recession prepared me for the COVID pandemic and where I am. What was so important was, at least, when I was with the chamber, the Birmingham chamber, I had, a staff of, at the time, I think it was up to 30 or 40 folks that, we could all work together on a project. But it taught me that you can do anything. You can do anything with a small, not a lot of resources. But as long as what you're doing is the right thing, you can make it happen. And lockdown happened. I got just a few hours notice, I think, before everyone else did, of what was coming down the pipeline. And I sat in my room and I cried for 30 minutes because I had no clue what was going to happen. And then I pulled myself up by the bootstraps and I said, what does this community need?
Yeah.
We really quickly shifted to utilize hashtags during lockdown for our businesses. We had hashtag curbside Homewood, hashtag takeout Homewood. So folks could know which restaurants were shifting to takeout services and curbside services and delivery, et cetera. Because sometimes their websites wouldn't update really, really quickly, but we could at least get that word out for them, which is really important. We did, I think it was 3 community town halls for the business community. We paired them with legal experts, with HR experts, with Dr. Ellen Eaton is right here in town. She's an infectious disease expert. And a number of our city councilors to, really help business owners figure out what they needed to do and put them in contact with those experts. And then we've had a blog on our website for a number of years, but we started inviting in subject matter experts to really help educate folks. We all got Zoom fatigue, but, coming up with some blog articles about like as an investor, don't freak out. As, from some lawyers, some business lawyers, here's how you can best protect your business, HR experts, how to set up your office to be remote for 2 weeks. We all thought it was 2 weeks. So, we really started trying to connect our members with all these resources, and it didn't cost us anything. Blog doesn't cost anything. Hashtags don't cost anything. So the training I got from that 2008, recession really prepared me to know I can think outside the box. I can pivot. I can pivot for these businesses and make sure they're getting the resources they need.
Yeah. And it's just about coming up with, like you were saying, it's not about spending money and creating and developing. It's just about how do you create strategies that connect people, right?
Yeah.
So
what's so interesting is, we've talked about strategic planning. I think in some ways a lot of our really important strategic planning had to get put on pause because, a big, pillar of what we do is, we call it networking and events. Events shut down, but that networking, I can help people network digitally. I can shepherd them digitally, introduce them to the folks that they need and what they, help them make sales digitally. So it's like the tenant is there even if the strategy has changed.
You've said that you've worked for multiple chambers, and there's a chamber in like every city that you go to. There's chambers all over the place. How did chambers work together? How do they integrate? Is it like the Catholic Church where there's a chamber pope or something? How does this work?
So we're a 501c6 nonprofit. We are a standalone organization.
And that's just the chamber in Homewood.
Yeah.
Is that?
Almost all are 501c6s.
Okay.
In their own organizations. We're not a franchise. Mm-hmm. We operate in our own silos in that sense. But because we're nonprofits and because sometimes nonprofits have, limited resources, we love to work together though. And we do that in a lot of different ways. We really get along really well. I think if you have a personality that is drawn towards this profession, you also are drawn towards those other people that have those personalities. So it works well. For example, we work with a number of our over the mountain, especially chambers, to put together just coming up on Monday, we have a breakfast with Gary Palmer. Gary Palmer doesn't necessarily have the time to go to every single chamber and do a breakfast. So we all work together to do one big one. That's also great because then my members get to network with members of other chambers. I can do networking events for my own members, and we've got, 500 businesses, but when we get to introduce them to, the other chambers and the other people, that's a good opportunity for them, and mixing it up just a little bit.
Yeah.
So sometimes we use that economies of scale to work together. Sometimes we have, done breakfast networking events too that, separate from some of our elected officials, just like round robin networking. We usually do that about once a year with we've gotten up to 11 chambers ranging from...
How many people are at these things? That sounds like a bunch.
Oh, I think we've gotten up to 300, not during the pandemic, but previously.
Yeah.
We filled up some ballrooms with some folks that want to network, but ranging from from Irondale down to South Shelby County, it's we all love to work together, and anytime that we can make one big event versus 80 small events, we really enjoy that.
So all the chambers are really just kind of like their own organism, and kind of, I guess, these network towers that are just communicating to each other, but they're all independent.
They're all independent. We have a state association that is very important. It's the Chamber of Commerce Association of Alabama. They provide us with professional development opportunities. They usually do 2 really great conferences each year where we can get together and we can talk about, hey, what worked in my community, what didn't work in my community, and we can work together on that. They bring in some national speakers on either membership sales or really cool outside the box projects.
Yeah.
And I serve on that state board actually as their vice chair of programs this year. So we've got some resources available to us, but that's not a governing body per se. They don't provide us funding. But it really is an association of chambers. There is a chamber for the state of Alabama, the Business Council of Alabama, and they really focus on advocacy at that state government level, and also at the federal level for policies that are going to be business friendly. And there is actually a national association of chamber executives, the American Association of Chamber Executives, and there is a U.S. Chamber of Commerce that is in a group of large businesses that advocate on that federal level too.
But none of these have like governing authority or like, hey,
funding.
We're all doing this together. It's the Homewood Chamber is Homewood, and that's where the influence is. Correct.
But it is also very important for me to be aware of what's going on in Montgomery and what policies might be coming down the line that are going to affect Homewoodians too.
Yeah.
So that's where groups like the Business Council of Alabama and the Chamber, the Chamber of Commerce Association of Alabama are really, really helpful, because I'm not recreating the wheel trying to make sure that I'm educated about these issues. They really provide those education opportunities for me.
Yeah. Earlier, when you were talking about you came right out of college and you Googled how to find a job in these terms, what inspired you to do this type of work that you ended up searching those terms and getting connected with this? Sort of where did that passion come from?
I think, and I was worried you were going to ask me what were the words, because I do not remember that. I knew I wanted to do something that was going to be fulfilling.
Okay.
I knew I wanted to do something that was going to be helpful, but in something community-based. It was probably going to be some sort of a nonprofit.
How did you know that?
I think it's a part of that core values discussion.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, spend the next, 40 years of my life just turning the wheel, making money, and not feeling like I've given back to my community somehow. There's probably, a psychological discussion in here somewhere. I mentioned, I think before we started recording, my father was in the military, so we moved around a lot. He and my mother from Trussville. So I was born in Rhode Island. We moved to Florida. We moved to D.C., moved back to Alabama finally. And, so I had moved around so much, but Birmingham has always been home. Birmingham has been, the rock. And, getting to come back to this town and try to give back to the community that, raised my parents, that, my grandparents lived here. This was Grandma's house to me. And my grandmother actually grew up over on Broadway.
Yeah.
Getting to give back to this community when I didn't have my own hometown. People ask where I'm from, and it's a tough answer. So getting to really have that sense of belonging and that sense of giving back to a community, I think was probably subconsciously very important.
Yeah, and that just kind of drove you as, what's the most community-based situation I can involve myself in?
Exactly.
Very cool, very cool. You also did some volunteering during your past. It was like the Rotaract Club? Rotaract Club.
So I did. I joined the Rotaract Club of Birmingham when I moved here. I was, probably a month after I moved here, I joined Rotaract. And it was a junior Rotary, and it's still in its existence. I believe it's the largest Rotaract club in the world. Birmingham is very blessed in the sense that we have a really engaged nonprofit community and civic community. So the Birmingham Rotary Club is the largest Rotary Club in the world. The Birmingham Kiwanis Club is the largest Kiwanis Club in the world. And then the Rotaract Club was the largest Rotaract Club in the world. So getting involved with that was very important. I wanted to network with other young professionals that weren't necessarily in my industry.
Yeah.
And then they provided really great learning opportunities. They have speakers at their twice monthly luncheons. They have service opportunities and lots of social opportunities too. So getting to do a little bit of all of that was so very important to me.
Yeah.
I was a member for 10 years until I aged out. So old now.
Dang.
And it really was just a great opportunity. And then I served as their programs chair in 2009, and put together those luncheon speakers. We grew the club at that time. The president at the time, VJ Graffio, had a really great approach to growing the membership. And we had to move we had a small room down at the Harbert Center to the biggest room in the Harbert Center, and it was a big feat, but that club is 300 members strong. It's huge. So that was a great opportunity for me, and they've provided a number over the years, a number of opportunities either to volunteer in a grassroots way. We've cleaned up 4-H centers and creek cleanups throughout the years. I've been able to network with members of the downtown Rotary. It was really just a great opportunity, but I aged out at 35.
Oh no.
Yes. But I still have a really great appreciation for volunteer work and boards in the community. I was on the Freshwater Land Trust Junior Board for a number of years, and that's an organization. It's really interesting. They do they purchase land that needs preservation for whatever reason. Either it's a strategic piece of land, it's threatened, et cetera, but they go and they buy it. And so we put together as a junior board a number of concerts to raise funds for their conservation efforts, and it was a lot of fun. We brought in the Wild Feathers one year. That was a whole lot of fun. The Land Aid is the name of that concert. So I got to volunteer with that group for quite some time. Now, of course, I mentioned I'm on the beautification board for Homewood, and we also do creek cleanups. We're doing one.
Is that a volunteer position?
Well, yes, it's a volunteer, board. So we do creek cleanups. Of course, I mentioned that we purchased the downtown Christmas decorations, but especially outside of the Christmas season, one of the biggest things we do are those creek cleanups. We've got one coming up this weekend, and we've got a Facebook event for that. I think if you search for the Homewood Beautification Board, you can see that Facebook event. Yeah, have you heard of these litter getters?
No. What is that?
It is a contraption that allows the creek to flow through, but it kind of catches litter. But it's only as good as where it's necessarily set to. So occasionally when you've got these big downpours of rain, the trash overflows, so we have to go pick it up. But it's a really neat. I think it's removed thousands of pounds of trash out of the Shades Creek, and
wow,
yeah, Griffin Creek over there too. So it's a really kind of a cool contraption. I believe Councilwoman Jennifer Andrus was very instrumental in getting us. I think we have one. We might have two.
That's really cool though. Inventing and leveraging technology to do that. When you're doing these volunteer experiences, obviously you've been doing it for a long time. To you, what's the value of volunteering? Why should people volunteer?
It's important, I think, to have some, civic pride in your community. And obviously, as the chamber director, I love Homewood. As someone I mentioned that, this has been my home, even when it wasn't my home. You naturally have that, interest in giving back. I think that in some ways, everyone's a different learner. And some people are auditory and some people are visual. That kinesthetic learning, that getting in and getting your hands dirty, I think is very important for putting two and two together and having that pride. It gives you a little bit of pride. And, look at all this trash that I cleaned up this weekend.
Yeah.
Or look what I did. Yeah, it's very fulfilling. And, Birmingham, especially as a metro, we've got, some of the most, I think, civically engaged populace in the nation. For a number of years, we've been the highest per capita, I think, giving, in the United States, and that also transfers to that hard work and that those grassroots kind of service projects that you can do too. So that's it. It's very important, and especially when there's those needs, it is important. But we're so lucky in this region that we have so many nonprofits that run the gamut from any interest you could possibly have.
Yeah.
You can volunteer for just about any organization and really get your hands dirty and help those organizations out.
Very cool. So when you're not working for the chamber and you're not volunteering all your time away, what do you do?
I keep a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old alive.
Yeah?
I have a 5-year-old.
Despite their best efforts,
Despite they want to, Now I have a 5-year-old, Alan, and he is in kindergarten over at Edgewood Elementary School. I have a 2-year-old, Elizabeth. Mm-hmm. She is over at Heritage Preschool. They take up a ton of my time and just getting them out and active, and we're really lucky. We live here in Homewood, so we've got lots of parks to take them to, and they love to take the dog on a walk and get some exercise. But they are a full-time job when I'm not in chamber or volunteer mode, I guess. I love to travel, and the COVID pandemic has really made that a difficult situation.
I agree.
We actually got to go up to Highlands, North Carolina, and go on some hikes this weekend, which was a nice little bit of a change of pace.
Yeah, beautiful scenery.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful, the mountains, and they have more hiking trails than I could ever get through. But we did a new one. We went up to White Waterfalls. They have a beautiful waterfall over there, and a really challenging hiking trail. My calves still hurt. That's a lot of fun, but with a 2- and a 5-year-old, you don't get to travel much.
Gotcha. It just makes it more difficult.
It's not a vacation anymore. It's just a change of scenery. So
the job comes with you.
Yeah, the job always is there, but they really are the best way to, kind of give back. It's, getting to be a parent, get to put people in the world that, hopefully are going to be good people too. So that's an ongoing project.
Absolutely. Talking about good people, our theme for this season is how to be a good neighbor. In your opinion, what does it mean to be a good neighbor?
I think just caring. When you care about your neighbors and you care about other people, I think that makes everybody, better off. We had a couple weeks ago, was woken up not in the middle of the night, but maybe it was later on. There was a fire engine outside, and so I put on my bathrobe and went to go find out what was going on and make sure everyone was okay. Everything was fine. There wasn't even a fire. It was just the smoke.
They were just having a party.
No, the smoke alarm was going off, and they couldn't get it to shut off, and they were worried that there was a fire in the walls or something.
Yeah.
So what did I do? Go and invite them over. Get out of the cold. Come on in my house. Can I make the kids hot chocolate? Like, what can we do? When you care about other people, I think everyone's a little bit better off, and you treat your neighbors a little bit better.
Yeah.
But that flows over into all sorts of different things. When you care about other people, you volunteer. When you care about other people, you don't litter. When you care about other people, maybe you shop local a little bit more. So it's it is an overarching. It makes everybody's lives a little bit better.
Yeah. I think that's a great insight on that. Final question, bringing it back to Homewood. What do you think the city of Homewood should focus on next?
I think it is all about strategy. And I think our city council has been very strategic in a lot of ways, and that's so important. I mentioned the strategy of building sidewalks, putting them close to school. The strategy of economic development is very important. We're really, really lucky in that we've got a great, business community, but we've got some opportunities too. Obviously Brookwood Mall is in the process of being revitalized, and, making sure that property is strategically, utilized is really important. But also, the Homewood is only 8 square miles. It is tiny. Every square foot is really important. And it's not just important in that we've got to build something really, really great on it. It's that you have to really marry that strategy in, the strategy behind, conservation of parks and green spaces, sidewalks. That's very important. But also when we build a business or we build something strategically, one, this is going to be a long-term staple of the community, that it's going to, provide what we need it to be, because we don't have space to throw away on, a business that's not necessarily gonna really have a long-term, benefit to the community. We have to be very strategic, I think, in every square inch, because it's at a premium here. And that's really going to be, I think, that's a tough question to answer. I tell people all the time, Vestavia is 30 square miles, Mountain Brook is 30 square miles, Hoover is 90 square miles.
I was going to say, yeah, Hoover is huge.
We have 8 square miles.
Yeah.
Every inch is really, really important. And we really have to be good shepherds. We have to be really caring neighbors. We have to make sure each square inch is utilized really, really well. And, any time that you've got, a property that's underutilized, that's space that's going to waste. So I've been really, really encouraged with some of the smart development that's gone on. The Valley Hotel has been such a great addition to downtown. I get calls all the time about folks that want to stay in downtown Homewood in a walkable sense. So that's been a great addition. Really thinking strategically about, where we're putting in these businesses, who those businesses are serving, And I know that, our city council does a really good job about putting all of those questions together. We have really great representation that cares about a lot of these things. Mm-hmm. So, just that remembering that we are tiny and every inch is important.
Yeah.
The strategy is so, I think quintessential to our success in the future.
So coming up with strong strategies to maximize the use of space.
But space is businesses, space is housing, space is green spaces. Each of those, you've gotta really think importantly about, okay, we want a park. Here's a space. Is that the best space for that park? Hey, we want a business. Here's a business. Is this the best space for this business? Making sure that we just have to be much more strategic about each square inch because we are so small.
Yeah.
In every sense of what we do.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me. Is there anything that you would like to close out with?
Homewood is the best, and I love living here.
All right. Well, that's a great way to end it. Thank you for listening to the Your City podcast, and I hope you enjoyed our talk today with Meredith. If you enjoyed the show, you can help us out by sharing it with a friend, a family member, a coworker, just someone who you think would enjoy this type of content. That helps us grow the show. It helps us reach more people, and we really appreciate you taking the time to do that. Thank you again for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.